In this video, I'm going to be showcasing the various mobile games, the hard copies that I've saved over the years. For the sake of better lighting, I've put a lamp up here, as you can see. Now, to begin with, I have Final Fantasy Adventure, Final Fantasy Legend 3, Daedalian Opus, Super Mario Bros. 3, Sword of Mana, the original Legend of Zelda, Zelda: Link to the Past, Big Hurt, which is a baseball game, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, Tekken Advance, Wolfenstein 3D. 4 games in one, including chess and checkers and backgammon. I'm not sure what the fourth is, but I've played the chess and checkers against AI opponents before. Another baseball game, in this case, focus that in, there we go, Nintendo Baseball, along with the first and second Final Fantasy on one cartridge. These are all the hard copies that I have retained over the years, my favorite of which are Final Fantasy Adventure and Final Fantasy Legend 3. An interesting note, Final Fantasy Legend 3 has a very similar plotline to Chrono Trigger, except Final Fantasy Legend 3 was originally released in 1991 by Squaresoft. Chrono Trigger was released for the Super Nintendo in 1995, so it's actually an imitation of this game. But it doesn't really matter because they're still two separate games with very different characters and very different ways that the story progresses. Now, of course, I've got the original Legend of Zelda because I had to have that. A key difference between all of these is that on the outside, all the gray cartridges are original Game Boy games, the 6 on the outside edge there. And it should be noted, here, let me switch hands, that the 5 on the top edge and the right edge, I actually don't have instruction manuals for. Everything in the central portion and the left edge, I actually still have the instruction manuals for. So that's important to note right now. And, pardon me, it's somewhat awkward right now because I have to hold my phone with one of my hands while using my other hand to indicate which game that I'm talking about. Now, Wolfenstein 3D, that's actually a direct precursor to the original Doom franchise, and it's a pretty good port to the Game Boy Advance. Tekken Advance, it's actually a fairly faithful adaptation for the Game Boy Advance, although the frame rate and speed are somewhat different. But besides that, it's actually very similar to the original arcade game. Metroid Zero Mission and Metroid Fusion were released almost simultaneously with the original Metroid Prime for the GameCube. The difference being, they're both for the Game Boy Advance. Super Mario Bros. 3 was originally released for, I believe, the original NES, one of the last games in that library. It should be noted that Final Fantasy Adventure and Sword of Mana are actually the same game, the same story, same characters, same plotline, except the difference is this was released during the 1990s and this was released during the early 2000s. The Mana Anthology is a very popular franchise, particularly in Japan, although it does have an American audience as well. And let's see here. I do still have some instruction manuals available. I'll go ahead and grab those right now. Yeah, right here. It should be noted that later releases of Final Fantasy Legend 3 were released by Sunsoft. It's basically the same company as Squaresoft. And they used to have very intricate instruction manuals for all of these. Basically, an instruction booklet on how to play the game itself. It should be noted that I did have Final Fantasy IV for the Game Boy Advance at one time, but it's the only cartridge that actually stopped working that I've ever bought. I have kept the instruction manual. It's unfortunate because this is one of the best Final Fantasy games ever released. Still, it's a small loss. It's very unexpected, though. These usually last forever. That's a sort of mana booklet. You can tell that the art style is very different from the original Final Fantasy Adventure artwork, character design, and all that. Speaking of which, this is the Final Fantasy Adventure booklet. See the difference here? And it also comes with a map. Pretty nifty, huh? I don't know how this has lasted so long. I've had this since I was a kid, really. Sorry about shifting my phone so much there. Need to very carefully open up the map and give everyone a closer look. It's kind of a challenge with one hand. Need to make sure I don't tear it, at least not any further than it already has been. And I had a couple of booklets drop on the floor. I should have opened it that way to begin with. Has a full item listing on the back here. See, they didn't really have anything listed online when these were released. The internet didn't really exist when this game was first released, so this is what you had, along with whatever media you could buy at the time. Alright, let me carefully fold that up again. Oh, the other side, of course. Yeah, that's basically the world map for the entire game there. Pretty nifty, huh? Now, forgive me just one moment. Need to retrieve the booklets that have actually dropped onto the floor here. Excuse me. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me. That's a Metroid Fusion booklet. It should be noted that I actually can't play any of these online. I have attempted to do so. I've tried to upload the first boss battle of Final Fantasy Legend 3 using a camera that recorded the screen of my Game Boy Advance, but unfortunately, it received a copyright notice right away as soon as it was done uploading. Now, while it wasn't a strike against my channel, it was enough that I had to delete the game to prevent further reprisal. Nintendo's infamous for doing that. I mean, there are some channels that can get away with doing that. I don't know how they do it. Maybe they have advance notice with representatives, but my channel's not really large enough to matter, at least not yet. That's for Super Mario Bros. 3, Tekken Advance, Zelda, A Link to the Past. Metroid Zero Mission is here. Wolfenstein 3D. And Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which is actually loaded in my Game Boy Advance at this time. It's been a while since I've actually turned this thing on. But this is it right here. You probably notice a tape on the bottom and the top of the screen there. I attempted to cover the brand marks on my Game Boy Advance to re-record the video that I had uploaded before, but that didn't work. Apparently, whatever algorithm monitors that, or whatever moderators monitor that, I don't know how it works exactly, but they didn't like it. And that's too bad, because I was going to record a full series directly from my Game Boy Advance screen. Although, I don't know, I suppose I could remove the tape at this time. One moment, please. There we are, and the second one. Now, I've had this thing forever. It can play original Game Boy cartridges, it can play Game Boy Color cartridges, it can play Game Boy Advance cartridges. 3 different systems in one package. Bit of an inside joke that I labeled it that way, high-tech equipment. And of course it takes 2 AA batteries in that compartment there, which currently aren't loaded, because if I did keep it loaded, I'd be tempted to turn it on and show the startup screen, which might nix this video in the algorithm for all I know. Regardless, I'm happy to showcase my handheld physical copy collection. Let's see, this is one of my older favorites right here, the baseball game, Nintendo Baseball. If you look closely enough, you have the Mario motif in the center as the pitcher there. It's actually a fun little game. It's very basic, but it adheres to the basic rules of baseball, with subtle differences depending on whether or not you choose to play in America or in Japan in the game. You have the choice of doing either. And I've never actually played the first or second Final Fantasy until I bought this cartridge here. Let me go ahead and move that over a little bit. Now you can see the price tags on the top 3 here. I bought all 3 of those used. Those came later. And as I've mentioned, all of these I actually don't have an instruction manual for, but these I've kept from my original collection. If I'd been thinking, I would have kept my entire original collection and bought an analog system. But when those were first released, how exactly do I put this? You know what analogs are, right? They play basically any of the portable cartridges, anything from an original Game Boy to a Game Gear to even an Atari Lynx. The problem is, when the analog was first released for sale, they were scalped into oblivion. I mean, people were going online, buying anywhere between 5 and 10 at a time, sometimes more, and scalping them on eBay for, say, many times what they were worth. I wish there was a better way to prevent that, because that irked me quite a bit. I was hoping to snap one up the second it was released. Would have been nice. Now, it should be mentioned that I do have an Odyssey channel as well under the same name. I don't know whether or not Odyssey will permit me to upload any sort of Nintendo portable games like this. They may or may not have similar copyright rules as YouTube, but I'll have to wait and see. They might be easier for me to actually... It might be easier for me to actually find someone to ask about that on Odyssey than YouTube. I've been having a lot of trouble speaking to anybody who represents YouTube who can tell me exactly what I can and can't do. The rules change on a dime, unfortunately. And, well, at least I can show you the games themselves. That's what matters in this video. I would love to actually start a series of both of these, maybe even this one. But not right now, at least not on YouTube. But yeah, it's the only handheld system I still have. Well, I would say that about sums it up. I appreciate you watching the video, and I hope that you enjoyed it. That's pretty much the entire collection that I have left.